Welcome back, everybody, to the Returning to Truth podcast, episode 3. Today, I'm very fortunate to be joined by Laura, a spiritual healer, author, speaker, and meditation guide whose work uniquely bridges science, spirituality, and ancestral wisdom. With a background in behavioral neuroscience, Laura weaves together modern understandings of neuroplasticity with shamanic practices passed down through her lineage, including the curandero, if I get that right, traditions of her
Curandero.
great-grandmother. Laura's approach to healing integrates neuroscience techniques, ritual, energy work, and holistic practices to support people navigating life challenges as pathways for growth and transformation. She has contributed extensively to the field of psychoneuroplasticity, including co-authoring psychoneuroplasticity protocols and addiction, and has spoken nationally on the integration of brain science and spiritual healing. She is currently based in Dallas, Fort Worth area. Laura offers the work through a private practice, guiding individuals into deeper alignment through both scientific understanding and ancestral insight. Laura, it's very much a pleasure to have you with us today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on, Jess. I love your content. I love where you're coming from in your space of really being rooted in spirituality. So I felt like, I'm so excited to talk to you about everything.
Thank you so much as well. It really is a pleasure to speak to someone who has vast experience in this space, to learn from myself, and obviously to share your experiences and your wisdom with people out there and hopefully impact somebody on a similar spiritual journey. I'd like to understand, first of all, how did you get to where you are today? How were you able to integrate the wisdom from your lineage, learn about that growing up, and see that your purpose was in the space that you're in right now?
It's a really interesting answer because it happened coincidentally, and I believe it's a testimony to what's in our DNA. And so I was doing shamanic work before I learned about my lineage. And I started doing shamanic work from a trip to Costa Rica. And I met a couple and they did shamanic work. And it's a long story, but the short of it is I started doing work with them and I just fell completely in love. And it was a time in my life where I was really questioning God. I was really questioning whether there was any higher power in life. So it came at a perfect time to almost show me that there is divinity and there is something higher than us that is unexplainable.
Yes. And was there a certain point spontaneously where it arises, this understanding, like through how we like to call it in the space, an awakening, or was it a build-up of events that led to this understanding?
I feel like it was a buildup of events. I'll give you the longer story. I had
Yeah,
gone to Costa
definitely.
Rica and I went on just a trip. I go on solo trips. I've been going on solo trips for a long time. And I thought it would be fun to just go there on my own and just go learn how to surf and all that good stuff. And I was at a restaurant and there was a waiter who I was flirting with. I'm a Libra, so I tend to be a tad flirty. And I was flirting with the waiter and I was joking with him, and there was this post on a palm tree that said, work with shamanic healers in Spanish. And I asked him, I said, should I go work with the healers? And he got really serious and he said, yes, you should. And he said, I'll take you to them if you want me to. He said, I get off of work at 4:30, come meet me and I'll take you. And for some reason, my soul was just saying, screaming yes. And it was really interesting because I would never typically put myself in that court-side of danger where I'd go with a stranger to meet two other strangers who I'm going to do shamanic work with. But something said yes. And so I did have an awakening. When I did work with them, I actually didn't do any substances like ayahuasca or anything else like that. I actually didn't want to lose control at that time. In that sense, I was very controlling. But what I did see was a peacock. And for me, that was a beautiful sign of being bold with who you are. And so I would say that was that was one of my adulthood awakenings. I felt like I had a lot of awakenings as a child, but as an adult, that was one of my biggest ones I've had.
Amazing. Yes. And I guess when you went through that experience, how did you come to the point where you decided to really bridge that gap by exploring into the science side of things? And were you previously studying in any type of degree, or was it after having those awakenings, having those mystical experiences, did you decide that I'm going to go look into neuroscience and things along those lines?
No, at the time I was in college and I was getting my neuroscience and psychology degree, so I was kind of in the field already.
Yeah.
However, when I graduated, I had continued to go back to work with them and they showed me everything, and they didn't let me pay for anything, by the way. I mean, they did this all for free. I would stock up their refrigerator and give them food. That was my only payment that they'd allow me to give. And so when I graduated, I went to work for a substance abuse treatment center, and I started bringing the modalities that I was learning from the shamans over to the treatment center I was working in. And I just saw how remarkable it was, for not just for me, but for everyone I was working with.
Yes. Yeah. And what were I guess, the greatest things that these, not experts, but shamans were teaching you, which you were able to integrate into your own practices or helping other people?
A lot of it was about reaching into your soul, reaching into your spirit, connecting with spirit guides, spirit animals outside of you to help you come into alignment and to be on your path. And so I was bringing shamanic journeys over to the treatment center. I was having clients meet their spirit animal in a spiritual journey. I was doing a lot of ceremonies and rituals with them where they would celebrate milestones in their life. Like, for instance, if they were going to get out of a toxic relationship, celebrating and letting go of being held by a relationship like that. A lot of it was becoming sober in the treatment center I was in. So we did milestones for saying, okay, I'm going to get off of that path that was leading to a lot of destruction into this current spiritual path. So it was such a gift to work there and be able to work with clients and bring the shamanic practices and see how healing and deep it was for them.
Yes, that's amazing. I'd love to understand something I'm so fascinated about is that bridge between science and spirituality. Do you believe that they are intertwined? And what have you found through your, I guess, studying and the knowledge of science that has, I guess, helped bring more light to your spiritual practices? And is it the future of spirituality where we're bringing more evidence to the understanding of consciousness, stuff around epigenetics and gene expression, where we can literally heal ourselves through our mind? I know through a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza stuff that I've read, I don't know if you know a lot about him, that he talks
I
about the
do.
spontaneous remissions happening at these events. And for a lot of people, they would find that crazy to believe. But I think we underestimate how powerful our thoughts are and our mind is. And I'd love to understand more about the science part of things.
Yes, yes to all of that. I do
Yeah.
believe that they intersect. And I think it's important that we understand what our brain is doing when we're going through a ceremony or we're going through a spiritual experience. For instance, when we do a shamanic journey, which for those of you that are listening that don't know what that is, you lay down on your back kind of in shavasana pose, and there's a guided portion where you're visualizing and imagining, and our imagination and visualization is so powerful because the brain doesn't know the difference between being there in reality and imagining it. You know, if I were to imagine the mountains of Colorado and me being there, my brain would think I was there. So it's a beautiful tool that we have that is underused. And so we go through a visualization journey, and then I start playing my drum based on the frequency of energy that that person is experiencing. I can tap into that. And when I do the drumming, it takes them into a different frequency. So usually it's theta brainwaves. And when you're in theta, you're in high imagination, high creativity, and also things are being presented to you from your subconscious or your psyche that you need to work on. So it's a beautiful experience. And what's happening in the brain during that experience is there's a part in our brain called the DMNs. And the DMNs is where we know who we are. So it's our ego self. So, hi, I'm Laura Martinez. I'm a neuroshamanic healer. Boom, that's my ego. That's who I think I am, right? And so during shamanic journeying, that gets quieted. We're not using that part of the brain. And so I think that's beautiful. It's like, what other way to get into your divine self than to have a structure in your brain that releases the ego self? So it's remarkable to know that there is science that can explain, in most cases, these spiritual experiences that we're having.
Right. And when you talk about, I guess, getting rid of the ego or maybe transcending the ego in a way, for people to understand more about that ego and how it plays a role in our life and in our spiritual journey, and especially for me personally, gaining that awareness to what the ego is and I guess how to not combat it but make friends with it in a way so it's used in a positive way. How can people come to awareness and recognize the patterns of their ego, their conditioning, and with your practical insight, use the tools to be able to transcend it and transmute it in a way where their life isn't controlled by the ego and they're actually expressing themselves through the light of the divinity of their higher self?
That is such a great question. And I think that it's beautiful to have a meditation practice. I believe that meditation and mindfulness is such a sacred tool that we can use to get into what I call, and a lot of other spiritual gurus call, I'm not calling myself a spiritual guru. I mean, I'm just saying I call it that, and then there's other people. Just want to be clear, I do not feel I'm a spiritual guru. But they call it the observer mind, and the observer mind is being able to witness yourself, right? Being able to witness your actions and observe your thoughts. And one of the ways that we can observe the ego is by witnessing and saying, oh, there's Laura again. She's getting mad in traffic and she thinks all of this is real and she's taking life too serious. And I say that to myself at times just so I can get into my observer mind, so I disconnect from my ego self. And then we can have fun with it and laugh and say, look how angry I'm getting in traffic. This is silly. I'm gonna get to my home. We don't need to worry. It's okay if I'm a little bit late,
Yeah.
So yeah. So it's the identification, it's the preference, it's the labeling things as good or bad, like this is good, this is bad. That's the ego. The divine self doesn't have those preferences. It just exists.
Yes, it's so powerful talking about this idea of the observer mind. And I like to call it, something I've been looking heavily into is this non-duality and understanding the pure awareness which we all are at our core. And to be able to bring light to that awareness that is within us all is people overestimate or overcomplicate the idea of not identifying with their thoughts. It's simply just having that awareness and realizing that we are not the thinker of our thoughts and there's something behind that happening. So I think it's a beautiful thing to realize who we truly are in our greatest essence. But most of us, maybe they haven't had a spiritual awakening or they're living life unconsciously, can't recognize that we are something much greater than this physical vessel that we see in the mirror, that within us all, we are all one at our core. So, talking about meditation, which is something that's enriched my life in so many ways, and I've only been on the journey for a few years now, is there any form or specific way to meditate that you have found is best for people, or is it an individualistic thing? And tell us more about, from a science-based view, what meditation, the benefits of meditation that has on the mind, on the psyche, on the spirits, and how one can start to meditate.
Yes, I believe it's a preference that people have. However, the one type of meditation that has gotten a lot of interest and has a lot of research is mindfulness. And that's training the brain to live in the present moment. So, letting go of the past and letting go in the future and just being fully present with your five senses, your thoughts, your emotions, and your intuition, and being able to be here now has shown a lot of research of the benefits of the brain and being able to actually even decrease the amygdala, the size of the amygdala. I mean, that practice allows you to change the structure of your brain. It's fascinating that we can do
Yeah.
that. And the reason why you'd want to have a smaller amygdala is because that's where our intense emotions or our center of fear is. And so whenever they look at Buddhist monks and mantra meditation and mindfulness practices, they've been able to see scans that they've actually changed the structure of their amygdala. It's incredible to think about. I mean, what other practice can we change the structure of our physical body and our physical self? It's incredible.
Yes, and I've also seen that type of stuff also with the likes of channelers who are able to go in that altered state and their brainwaves shifted in I guess, an unnatural way. And if people don't see that proof or signs of meditation, like why, I believe if we all realize that meditation would, I guess, in a way, have a ripple effect on the world and change everyone, find that deeper realization within ourselves. I think for me, meditation is what brought about my awakening by having a deeper sense of who I am, the self within me, and realizing I'm not Jess, I'm something much greater. What do you say to people who, some people are what you call logically minded or practically minded, even though it contradicts the science that's out there? I can't switch off my mind. I don't have time to meditate. I just don't see the benefits. What do you say to those people?
I tell them that they need to take extra time then to do it, right? Because it's this belief that we don't have time, but the truth is we make time for what's important to us. And so I would say that they could start with meditations like a walking meditation, but slowing down their pace when they walk. Also, I like the meditation of staring at a candle for people that have a really like ADHD brain and being able to just bring their focused awareness on the candle. That's been really helpful for my people that have really busy minds. And even this the slow walking meditation, it's like it's training your nervous system and your body to slow down. And if we don't train our nervous system to slow down and we don't learn how to breathe and we don't know, our nervous system doesn't know that, we truly can't heal, Jess. There's just no healing. We know with neuroscience that we can't heal in a sympathetic arousal state. This just can't happen. When you're in fight, flight, flee, or fawn, you cannot heal. You can only heal in the parasympathetic. And so for me, one of the first things I do with client is see if they have coping skills and see if their body and their mind and their spirit has been trained to slow down. That's
Yeah.
really important. Yeah.
Right. And how could people recognize, I guess, if their nervous system is dysregulated in some sense? And I'd also be interested to understand what is the difference between the nervous system and the ego, and do they play a role together um, in a way where you have to regulate both of them? I'd like to understand more about if are they intertwined in some way?
Yeah, I would say that they are intertwined. I would say when somebody gets into a conflict or they get into a heightened state, they're probably doing that because the ego is directing them in a way, right? The ego is telling them there's threat, right? There's threat here, or somebody's being triggered from a trauma wound. And so the nervous system, we have to learn how to respond in a way where we can find that calm in that centered spot. And, I really do believe that we can't get there without teaching it step little by little. I always tell my clients, do one practice that calms your nervous system, whether that's breathing for a minute or going on a slow walk or doing some slow flow yoga. Teach the body how to do that. And you asked, how do people know when their nervous system is in that sympathetic arousal state? Well, there's a lot of symptoms, and one of them is being constantly tired, burnout, waking up with the feeling of dread and saying, I can't go throughout the day because I just don't want to wake up. That's your nervous system. It's screaming at you. Also, if you are rushing from thing to thing to thing, like you've got a schedule and you're boom, 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 and you're not finding any time for yourself, your nervous system is probably deregulated and you are having burnout symptoms, being constantly stressed, not getting enough sleep, not eating well, you not drinking enough water. All of those, I believe, are symptoms of burnout and the nervous system being on overdrive.
Yes, fascinating. And I feel like so many people in this day and age walk around with that deregulated nervous system and that heightened state, but they simply aren't aware of it. So it's like becomes the norm to them. So for you and people like you to shine the light on that so people can start to heal, it's going to help a lot of people. So it's very powerful, I guess. I'd love to talk more about what you do and the type of people that would come to you. What is the biggest, I guess, pain point or, I guess, hurt that people are going through generally and that you have to help them heal, I guess?
Yeah, I feel like my niche, even though it's not a stated niche, but for some reason I really do attract people that are healers and intuitives, almost people that are in the field themselves. And I believe that my niche is centered around helping people find their purpose, or what I call their shamanic medicine. I believe that each one of us has a unique medicine that we need to share with the world. It's almost as unique as your fingerprint. And I help people tap into what their medicine is and what their life purpose is. And the way that I do that is helping them. They do all the work. I just show them, right? I'm not healing them. They're healing themselves. But it's helping them to come into alignment with themselves. So often we're living in the should mentality. I should do this. I should do that. Or this person wants me to do this, so I need to do this. Instead of living our own truth and what feels good to our soul. And so I help people really get on track with alignment and getting alignment for themselves.
Yes. And something that I'm very big on as well is understanding that our internal alignment is how we express, I guess, our external purpose in a way. And I believe that our purpose as souls has come here to express our divinity through our humanness. What do you believe? And I like to ask all my guests, the purpose of life is? Is it a general purpose, or do we have individual purposes? And how can we discover those purposes? Does it start by doing the work with experts like you to help people dig deep into their wounds, into their conditioning, to bring out that version of themselves that is divine, that is meant to live that aligned life that they'd be put here for?
Yeah, I do believe that we are here and meant to, of course, enjoy and play and have fun and do that in a way that's in alignment with our soul, not the distraction kind, but that soul kind. And there's a difference between those two. And I believe that we're here to find our medicine. I really do. And by finding that medicine and bringing it into the collective, like Jess, it seems like you're doing your medicine, you're doing your work. You've started meditating. I know you work with clients. You bringing that medicine into the world is helping us heal as a collective. So there's this idea in shamanism that if we were to all tap into our medicine and we were to all express this medicine, we would all heal each other instantaneously. But we don't do that because a lot of people are not doing the work, and it's not their lifetime, I believe, to to go there. I do believe that when we know we're ready in our lifetimes, we just know, like for some people that I've worked with, they have felt since they were a child that they've been getting to work since they were a child of, I know I was brought here to do some sort of mission, right? And then some people don't really think about it in their lifetime. So it depends on where we are in our soul.
Yes, right. And, talking about this divine timing in a sense, and our souls are ready to, I guess, express itself in its truest nature. What if somebody out there has been brought up in an environment where they don't particularly feel aligned with the people, the family members, the friends around them? They may be in a conflict because they're trying to express their truth, their divinity, but the voices around them is a hindrance to their growth. How do people navigate that practically when they have family members who are telling them, oh, the spirituality it's bullshit in a way, and all these other things around them? How can they navigate that? Should they cut people out, or is it understanding where people are at, unconditionally loving people, holding compassion in your heart for people, and just keeping that wisdom to yourself?
Yeah, that's a great one. A lot of people experience that, especially when they feel like they have some sort of spiritual mission. They're usually born into families that contradict, where it gives them contrast.
Yeah.
I believe contrast is really good. It's a great thing, because the more contrast we have, the more fire, the more, heat, pressure to become the person we're meant to be. And if we didn't have that sort of pressure, that sort of heat, then we might not ascend the way we need to ascend. It's almost like there's power in conflict, and there's power in that contrast. And so for people who feel like, I don't belong in this family system, or I'm so different from this family, it's actually a marker that you need to be bold and authentic with yourself and be who you are even further. And of course, I'm always about acceptance and compassion, and being able to accept where the people are around you, as long as they're not harming you or crossing your boundaries in some sort of way, right? There are some unique situations where allowing family members to be let go is more healthy than keeping them in your life, right? Depending on the situation, it depends on from person to person. Sometimes we have to let people go in order to ascend, and sometimes we just have to show compassion and accept where they are in their development or in their stage of life.
Yes. And do you believe that you are able to awaken people by spreading that insight, or are people simply on a timeline, and no matter what knowledge you share, it's not going to stop them from being who they're being, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. Both can be true. Some people, we're doing the work and they're starting to have these aha moments, and they're starting to awaken to their true selves. And we get to this barrier or obstacle, and they start to realize, it's probably best for me to let this go. But it's not necessarily, something that's coming to me, Jess. It's not necessarily about letting the actual person go. It's about letting the tie to that person, right? So for a lot of adults, they still are trying to make their mom and dad happy. They're still giving their mom and dad all the power to decide whether they have made it or not made it, or whether they're successful or not successful. So when I say letting go, it could be the actual person, but it's more about the expectations that you feel for mom and dad. Or any other family member, right? Letting go of that and saying, I'm not going to base my success or who I am as a person on their standards. I'm going to go to my standards instead.
Yes. And I think it's a beautiful thing to have these relationships, which I believe in soul contracts, and we come here to, I guess, have people around us who reflect and mirror lessons onto us, because I believe everything is just a lesson in its intrinsic nature. So if we just see life as this contrast, as you say, of people showing you what you need to learn about yourself, then it's not inherently a negative thing having these relationships, having these circumstances come at you, because all it's going to do is help your soul evolve and become more true and divine in your expression, I guess. Um, I would, I'd love to understand with epigenetics and go delve into that more. How can people simplify it and use practices that stem from it to aid themselves in their healing, in a more purposeful living, in a more aligned living?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really believe that you have to find a routine that works for you, right? Just because all these spiritual people are doing meditation and yoga, and that might not be your thing, right?
Yeah.
That might not be in alignment for you. You've got to find what aligns for you and what makes your soul happy. For me, it makes my soul happy to get up in the morning, look at the sun, drink my hot water with lemon, go on a run. That feels good to me. That feels good to my body. My soul awakens and it's like, oh, I'm so happy to be alive. So I would encourage people, find a routine that you can be disciplined in, because discipline is a big deal in being able to live in alignment. And do that, do that daily if you can, do that practice. Because I feel like a lot of people, they feel lost or they feel stuck, but they're not giving themselves a sort of routine or something that their soul can connect with. I like doing it first thing in the morning, but some people like doing that routine at night. Some people, find the time of day that aligns with you as well. But I think if you start small with one little practice that makes your soul feel good, then you have an envelope and you can open that further and further, and then we can create more alignment in your life by you doing things that make your soul feel good throughout the day.
Yes, and for someone who may be thinking, oh, but I have my work to attend to, I have my expenses, I have my family, what purpose is it going to serve to, I guess, nurture my soul and perform these practices? How can people truly understand? And once upon a time, before I had my spiritual awakening, my mind would have never went here. So how can people recognize that it is so important to nurture your soul, feed your soul with these practices to become the true essence of why you were put here? Because it's almost like we were put here, we were wiped of our true understanding, and it's the remembrance and the recognition of who we are that brings us back to our truth. So why is it important to understand our truth, and how can people who see life through this 3D lens of that's all it is, understand that there's something more going on?
Yes, I think it takes trust and faith. And this is one of the things, whenever somebody asks me, I had another podcast host ask me, what are the people that are most stuck? And I believe in my experience, in my data, that it's people that can't trust and don't have faith. And when I say faith, I don't necessarily mean in a certain higher power. I mean faith in either your highest self or a higher power, or in something bigger than you, right? And I think that faith is really important. And when you were talking about how when people are stuck in this rat race of I have to make money, I have to do this, but I'm not happy, but I have to keep going, that faith comes in whenever you say, you know what, I know that if I start getting into alignment and I start letting go of these things that are not in my alignment, I trust and I have faith that there's abundance in this path. Because when you have tapped into your own medicine and you are living in alignment, abundance comes to you. I mean, it's like you're radiating this frequency of love and energy and excitement and high vibing, or whatever you want to call that label, and you're attracting abundance to you. But I really do think to jump off that ledge, you have to have faith and you have to have trust, and even trust in yourself that you are going to root for yourself and you've got to bet on yourself. And I think that's important. When I started my private practice, I left the corporate world, the treatment center I worked at, And I started it, and I said, you know what? I've got to bet on myself. If I can't bet on myself, then who else can, right?
Yeah.
I've got to bet on me that I'm going to make it and that I'm going to survive. And because I work for myself, live for myself. I'm the only person who's feeding me and making money for myself. So I got to do it. So, so faith. Sorry, that was a long explanation, but I just get going.
It's beautiful. I agree totally. And one of the things I talk about often is this idea of certainty and not hoping your way through life, but knowing that this vision that you have, which is so important, you have to have a clear vision of who you want to be. And then the idea of law of attraction and manifestation and how your mind is so powerful. Through neuroscience, you could probably explain more how, as you explained before, your mind doesn't know the difference between, I guess, what we're thinking and the reality, if I stand correct. So
Yes.
people should be actively, I guess, practicing visualization. Do you involve that within what you do with your clients? How important is visualization? Talk about your definition of manifestation and how it plays a role in our life, because you mentioned abundance before, and I've heard many spiritual teachers talk about how abundance is more of a spiritual ego construct. But why is it that, are we allowed to, I guess, express our purpose in wanting to acquire some material good? Is that a negative thing? Is it the intention we hold behind it? I'd love to explain more about manifestation.
Yeah. No, abundance doesn't have to just be material. It could be love, it could be friends, it could be connections, it could be community. We live in a world that is abundant. If I were to put, in most places, if I were to put a seed outside and put it into the earth, that seed is going to root and it's going to grow a plant. That's abundance. It's the energy is there. It's just a lot of times we don't feel worthy of it. We don't feel deserving. We also don't feel like it's possible. For me, manifestation is the belief that what we think becomes reality. And if I am constantly thinking that I'm a failure and that I'm not good enough and that nobody's going to learn anything from the work that I do, or I'm purposeless, I'm going to create that. I'm going to be purposeless. I'm going to not be very good at my job. It's our thoughts that become reality. And I do believe manifestation is important in living like it's already happened, because you're activating that frequency in your body, right? If I believe I already have peace, or if somebody's in a relationship and they want to stay in that relationship, but they're disgruntled about the relationship, start acting like you already have the relationship that you have, and your frequency will change and your partner's frequency will change as a result. And so I do believe in frequency of energy, and whatever frequency we're tuning into, that's what we're going to get in return. To me, that's what manifestation is.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's such a powerful thing to use. And I guess I've been through my own struggles with this idea of manifestation because we're told so many different methods of how to do it. I think we overcomplicate it in a way, but I'd love to understand. Sorry, I've gone blank.
No, you're okay. Yeah.
I had so many tangents of thoughts coming to me. Something I've heard with manifestation is beyond law of attraction is the law of resonance, that we must resonate as you talk about that frequency. How can people, I guess, what type of practices would people do to visualize? I've heard about, like you say, sitting, looking at a candle. Should we do it before we sleep, when I know scientifically our brain is going to those different brain states, so we're more receptive to ideas? I know when I sleep, I listen to an audio track of somebody affirming all these things. Do you think from a science background, it's important to do it at a certain time of the day? What is your thoughts on that?
I love sleep meditations, is what I call it, or sleep manifestations,
Yeah.
because your brain, you're absolutely right, your consciousness is more open, And it is truly, sleep is truly one of the only times that we really surrender. I mean, we really let go. We
Yeah.
really are, our ego is not in control. So I like sleep meditations before bed. And I always tell, manifestation meditations before sleep. And I tell my clients to do them during that time because we are more susceptible. And during the day, we've already gotten into our work. We've already had all of these judgments and we've had all of these preconceived notions. And so during the day might be more difficult because that brain, that DMNs, that ego self is already active, right? And at night, it's like we can kind of just surrender it. So
Yes.
I like it at night. Yeah. And I do believe getting into the frequency, one of the ways that we do that is by activating the emotion, you know? Like, what emotion do you want to experience from your manifestation? Okay, let's say, okay, I want to manifest that me and my husband are going to live in peace and harmony. Okay, visualize that and activate the emotion of peace and harmony in your body before bed, because you're training your nervous system in your body. When I think about him, when I'm with him, I have peace and harmony. So that's a really good way of getting into that harmonic resonance that you were talking about, is activating the emotion in the body.
Yes. And if someone struggles to feel that emotion, how can they go about feeling it? Often I've given the example of, to start off, to be able to feel that emotion, think about someone that you love and picture them, and that emotion will come about. Is there ways of where people are like, oh, I don't feel that love, I don't feel that abundance or prosperity?
Yeah, I would say if that's the case, and I've had clients like that, then I have them think about something different, right? Where can you feel abundance and prosperity? And if they say never, I never experience abundance or prosperity, then I have them do a action where they can say, okay, that was abundance and prosperity, right? Like going to sleep at night and having a bed and having a roof over your head. That's abundance and prosperity. I mean, you've got a shelter. There's so many people that don't have a shelter to live in. So a lot of times it's perspective change. If a person ever says, I can't experience that emotion, they're just not, they're not in that gratitude area of their life where they can actually see, yes, you just haven't awakened to the fact that you already have what you're looking for.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree. I think the most mundane circumstances in life could be so beautiful, and we just have to change the way we look at things, I guess. We're always looking for something out there that's going to be grandiose and spectacular, but we realize that the fleeting nature of things never brings us that inner satisfaction that could come from the smaller things in life. I would love to know about purpose, and someone who's out there, many of us in life struggle with this idea of purpose. It's one of the greatest questions. What is our purpose? What is our meaning to exist? How can people come to start on the road to understanding their purpose and then being able to actualize it? Because I'm very big believer that we've all been put here with an individual purpose that in the big picture contributes to the combination of us coming together, like you being a healer, like me doing my coaching. So how can people recognize this true purpose that is made for them?
I ask people this question: what sets your soul on fire? What sets your heart on fire? What gives you so much joy? And that is almost like a little string towards your purpose, because some people say, well, it gives me a lot of joy to hang out with my cats. Okay, great. Let's start there. What is it about the cats that you like to enjoy your time with? Oh, well, I love how smart they are and I love this and that. Okay, so we can go from there. And I think purpose doesn't necessarily have to be an occupation. I feel like it's a very Western thought that our purpose is our occupation. Sometimes it is, like you and I, it just happens to be our occupation. But
Yeah.
it could also be to birth a child, to be a mother. It could be to be a good gardener, right? It could be a lot of things. And so sometimes our purpose can just simply be love. And I attended a funeral recently, and what everybody said about him was that he was love and he made everybody feel loved. What other purpose is better than that? So a purpose doesn't have to be a doing. A lot of times I think we think about it that way. It can also be a being and existing, a living. Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful. I definitely agree with that. I think we've been programmed in a way to think that purpose means an occupation or some type of external doing, as you say. You talk about love, and that's something that screams at me because I guess one of my biggest lessons on this spiritual journey is unconditional love. Holding people in the highest form of light, seeing the purity, the souls of people, not just their physical identity. How important for our own healing, for the healing of the world, is unconditional love, compassion. All of these beautiful monks, and I don't know if you've seen the monks walking in America, and my girlfriend happens to come from a Hindu background, and all of these people who are gurus and masters that have lived throughout generations and generations talk about this idea of love. So simple, yet people find it so hard to really embody that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is. It is. It's so hard. It's so difficult because we've got all of these expectations and we're not living in gratitude a lot of the time, but I do feel like it's possible to be able to experience unconditional love for people. Some people say you can only experience unconditional love with your kids. I don't believe that. I think that is a powerful feeling, and I do believe that that's easy for our kids, but it's different whenever you're looking at someone and you're seeing them show up as a being and you're having compassion for them, right? It's a different type of love. And so I think the love that you're talking about is an agape love, which is like a collective love for everyone. And if we were to be that and do that, our world would be so different. You know?
Yes, that comes back to that non-dualism, that understanding that the awareness in me is the exact same awareness in you, that pure consciousness, that oneness as they talk about it. But because so many of us are identified with this physical body, this identity, our senses, then we can't recognize that true oneness within us. And that's why I believe, and I'd love to hear about your opinion on the world and the disaster events that take place. Where does that stem from at a psychological level, at an egoic level, at a nervous system level, a spiritual level? And how can we go about healing the world? Does it start as within us, or is it a collective thing?
Yeah, I think it's almost like a wave versus the ocean, right? We have to start with ourselves in order to impact the ocean. And I believe there is a lot of division. I don't know how it is in Australia, but here in the United States, there's a ton of division. And I believe that when we start getting into this thought of us versus them, that's whenever we start to create a lot of negativity, darkness, all of that stuff. There is no you versus them. Like you said earlier, we are all one. You are that person that you don't like. You are the president. You are this other, you're the Democrat, you're the Republican, you're everything in between. I do think politics really sets us up into this structure of you versus them. And I myself am apolitical because I just believe that our collective consciousness is we are all in this together. And I think one of the ways that we can heal the world is by starting to give compassion to other people, but also to be able to identify, because we all get into the you versus them all the time. Starting to look at yourself when you start getting into that. And it's not only about the world politics, it can also be about, if the store messed up your order and they gave you the wrong, your Uber Eats comes and it's the wrong Uber Eats, right? That's a you versus them as well. So I think we need to really catch ourselves in this, and we can't do that without that observer mind I talked about earlier. Like we have to be able to observe ourselves and catch ourselves when we're in that space.
Yes, and That's definitely where the practice of meditation comes into place, because I think that really hones in on that observer mind. It really comes forth. Without that, we're just walking through life unconsciously, and we're not really seeing what's taking place behind the scenes. And it's so true that this compassion that we must hold for each other. But if someone's like Laura, my friend of 10 years, hurt me so deeply, he did this to me, did that to me, and all the content of the experience that's taken place, how can I forgive him? I have so much hatred in my heart. Where does the healing start?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would really encourage that person to take that actual person out of the equation in their mind and more focus on, well, why? What happened? What triggered you? What was hurt? And how does that connect with childhood or maybe a past event, right? I would really like that introspection. A lot of times we want to point the finger, well, it's my friend and he did it or she did this. And it's like, no, you've got to look at what happened inside of your container. We got to start there.
Yeah.
And once you touch, and I call that accountability, right? And I say, okay, I got hurt because I feel like I'm not important to that person. Okay, well, when did you feel not important before? Oh, in childhood, I never felt important. Okay, so that's the real issue that we need to work with, right? Is what's going on within you. And I think a lot of people, once they shift through that and they're able to process through that and see their accountability and see where it connects with them, then they can see, oh, I'm making this such a bigger deal with my friend than I need to. I'm carrying all my past hurt into this relationship with my friend. And maybe I'm punishing my friend for all of this pain that I've carried along the way. So introspection is the answer to that. It's like, if you have somebody like that, we got to have them do some introspection so they can really look at what's going on inside.
Yes, that is so true. I think introspection, being able to be self-reflective, I think that spirituality within us gives us that bird's eye view angle, that no matter what, you can't unknow a knowing. When something takes place, there's always that deep inner soul within us that is telling us this is wrong, this is right. So you can't avoid it. So eventually it's going to come and bite you in the ass if you choose to act from the ego or the false self. So it is definitely true that it gives you this heightened sense. So being able to be from the observer point of view allows you to live your life that is true to who you really are. And I think that's so important. But then again, people should also recognize that you're going to make mistakes. Life is a constant journey. What would it be if you just awaken and you're perfect? You have to be able to immerse yourself in the experiences that come your way, be able to fail, but don't hold guilt or shame or negative frequency or vibrations towards situations. Be okay with it, be present, learn, and move on. What do you believe about this idea of Earth being a school where we are students, this analogy, and everything is lessons? Do you believe in that?
Oh, absolutely. My spiritual guru is Ram Dass, and I don't know if
Yeah,
you know
I
Ram
love
Dass,
it.
but
Yeah.
oh, I just get goosebumps even thinking about Ram Dass, and that is something that he taught me, from his audios and his podcasts and all of that and all his talks. Is we are in school. It's time to learn. I believe that wholeheartedly, that we're all here to learn and not be so hard on ourselves. We're not going to be perfect and we're not going to do things perfectly. And I love Ram Dass. If you've never listened to him, for those that are listening to Jess's
Yeah.
podcast, check him out, because he makes fun of himself and he's so just playful about it, and he's just, what he says is so deep. I've never heard a being that is so deep but also so playful, at the same time. It's such a beautiful contrast that Ram Dass has. But yes, to answer your question, we're here to learn, and we all have a different spiritual curriculum. I don't know if you've noticed this, Jess, but when I work with a client, there's always a central theme to that person's life. In other words, there's always like a wound a key wound that we always come back to. No matter what we're talking about, we could be talking about his mom, or we could talk about his relationship, or we could talk about work. It usually all ties into this central theme, and that theme could look like I'm not good enough, or I'm going to be abandoned. And the reason I think that's so essential is because I feel like that's their spiritual curriculum. Okay, this is your spiritual curriculum. This is the same thing keeps coming up with everything. Okay,
Yeah.
it's time to learn. How can we change the pattern? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and all of this just comes down to that awareness that we can't be introspective, that we can't see life as constant teachings. Because as long as we don't see that, we're always going to walk through life and make the same mistake. And the universe or God or whoever you want to call it is going to keep throwing it at you in a different way, in a different content of experience. But we're going to keep knocking our head. So I think people out there watching this to realize to really be aware that everything that comes your way is there for your highest good, and just be willing to learn. I love Ram Dass. I've watched a lot of his content, and I'm even more inspired by his, I guess, guru Neem Karoli Baba. I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't know
Yes.
if you've looked into him. I think it's
Yes.
an amazing story how he goes there to search for a guru, and he ends up giving him all of this LSD, and he doesn't really. I thought it was the most unbelievable thing. He doesn't feel it because he's naturally in that blissful state constantly. It's so amazing that someone can get to that state. Talk to people who are at a point on their spiritual journey that maybe their self-inquiry, their self-searching has capped out, where they need somebody to help them. How important is it to search for a guru who can guide you?
I always feel like the guru will come to you when you're ready. Like somebody will come across your path, just like it happened to me when I was in Costa Rica. It just came across my path. So I really am in the belief system that you don't have to go to a guru, that the guru will come to you. I actually kind of ran across Ram Dass too, as listening to his content, just coincidentally. I felt like I was ready to listen to his content. So I feel like those gurus will show up, but you do have to pay attention, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're not paying attention, then you'll miss that opportunity to work with that guru or to learn from that guru. So yeah, and I feel the same thing, by the way. A lot of people ask me about ayahuasca, and they're like, well, should I go do a ceremony? Oh, like that opportunity, that guru, she will come to you when you're ready. It will come to you. You don't have to seek it out.
Yes. And I've personally had my own psychedelic experiences. And I believe that these states can definitely be achieved naturally. That, I don't know if you've explored it at all, I love to understand it, that psychedelics really just brings out that pure bliss spiritual experience in like a shorter period of time. But it helps you recognize that you don't need exogenous substances to be able to bring that out of you, that every day can be psychedelic, that every day can be blissful. Life is beautiful. You just have to change the way you look at things, really. Have you had any experiences with psychedelics?
Yes, I have. In my own personal healing, I have. I do agree with you that you don't need the psychedelics to have a psychedelic experience. A lot of or I'll say all of my sessions are sober with clients, and they achieve these psychedelic, really out there experiences with the drumming and the sound and the sound bowls. They achieve this because it's the neural pathways in your head are there, right? The neurotransmitters in your mind are there. They just have to be activated, and they can be activated by sound. They can be activated by going into these subconscious altered states of reality. So, but yes, I am a big psilocybin proponent. I think there's lots of strong research about what psilocybin does for our brain, if, microdoses, of course, and being able to do that. But, as a cautionary, you have to be really careful, because some people are not going to benefit from something like that. This is not a one size fits all sort of, I don't know the legality in Australia.
Yeah.
Here they're attempting. I feel like there's a wave of therapists and healers and doctors and nurses that are really trying to push for psychedelics to be legalized for treatment. We've had ketamine that has been accepted, so there's that, and there's been a lot of promise of other psychedelics being legalized for therapeutic endeavors, right? So, but yeah, psychedelics they're really strong research about how well they can clean out the brain and heal depression even. So
Yeah,
pretty incredible.
it is incredible. And I think there's so much more research to come that will be coming out in due time. I'd love to understand about the idea of neuroscience and science. Is there a limitation where we're in our current understanding that can't measure the true spiritual experience and what is happening at a soul level? Are there actively new discoveries are making about our consciousness, about epigenetics, neuroplasticity, all the different healing modalities and things to do with the mind, the spirit? Will science ever get to a point where it could truly define what is happening at a spiritual level?
Oh, that is such a tough question. I go yes and no. Sometimes, some days I think, yeah, I think science will get there to describe it. But then most days I think no, because it's too special of an experience to put in a petri dish, And so most of the time I think no. I think it's too special. I don't think you can categorize it to a petri dish and be able to observe it. I think it's more, if we go back to faith and trust, I think it's more something that you need to believe in. And that's the power of belief, where you don't need evidence. Like you and I, because you've had these spiritual experiences, you probably don't need the evidence, right? I mean, the evidence. The evidence is in your soul, it's in your body, it's in the way you're living your life. I mean, I don't want to guess for you, but for me, I don't need the evidence. I mean, I think it's wonderful so I can share the evidence with other people. But once you've had these spiritual experiences, it's like, to me, science is great and I love it and I use it in my own sessions, and I got my degree in neuroscience, of course I believe in it, but I don't need it to prove that I'm having this awakening.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I don't think logic could ever define like the divine. It's something that God or the universe will never allow us to truly experience through intellect. It's something that you have to individually and internally experience. And as you said, what is evidence? If you explore the idea of evidence, it's a subjective term for everyone. People's evidence is based on science, but science is just limited to a certain understanding, as we all know. Someone I'm very interested in is, I don't know if you've heard of Sam Harris.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He's a very smart guy, and I've been looking a lot into his, obviously, mindful practices, and he really is able to articulate the science behind meditation and mindfulness and the benefits, and he also talks about the self, the observer. For people who are skeptical about spirituality, I have friends or people around me, I speak about it, and when you bring it up, it almost goes over their head. It's like this ignorance towards, I don't want to understand more than I already know. It's almost confronting. It's intimidating. How can people, from a very simple view, understand what spirituality is? Understand that it's not a religion, it's not a dogma, it's not an ideology. Well, how would you explain spirituality to the person who doesn't truly understand what it is?
I would say, just to keep it really simple, spirituality is the connection that you have to the whole. I mean, that's what I would say. And that connection depends on you connecting to self and you connecting to the collective. And so I would say, just simply, if I could just use one word, it would be connection. That would be what spirituality is. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's beautiful. We are definitely all connected, and once we all realize that, the world would truly be united and unified together, and we wouldn't have to be greedy or have wars over land or these labels with like religion or race and creed, and that stuff is obviously at a lower frequency.
Pretty low, yeah.
Yeah. I would love to ask you, and I always ask my guests, if you were to die tomorrow, what would be the last thing you leave to the world?
I would leave the world the belief that people know that how powerful they are on their own, and the belief that they can become an expanded version of who they are, and for people to truly believe how sacred and special they are. And I believe there's so many voices that tell us we're not. And if I could leave a special gift, it would be the belief that you are powerful and you are empowered and you can be and become anybody, anything that you want to. There are no limitations, only the limitations we place on ourselves.
Ooh, that's beautiful. Yes. And also, if someone's watching and you could lay out some type of blueprint on how they could start today to live a better life, where would they begin?
I would say always begin with the breath. Our breath is our connection to our soul. So the way that we breathe is the way that we're going to really change the way we live. And so see if today, if you can just slow down the breath, allow the breath to deepen, allow yourself from the breath to come into being in the present moment, living in the now, bringing the attention here. I think that's mindfulness is a powerful practice that anybody can start with. We all have the resources to do that. Even if you don't have a sense, like you don't have a sight or smell, you can still use the other senses, right? And you can still be with your emotions, be with your thoughts. So I would say start with mindfulness. I think that's a really powerful, purposeful way to start.
Yes. Oh, definitely. And I think it's great that mindfulness is definitely being, I guess, made more available to people and not really, I guess, classified as spirituality. So people aren't put off it with this preconceived assumption. So
Yeah.
I too believe that meditation, breathwork, and these practices will literally change your life, to put it short. And everyone out there should immerse themselves in it sometimes in their day, because we have a lot of time to
Yes.
play with.
Yeah, and we can practice anytime, when we're on the bus, when we're washing the dishes, when we're just sitting. You have access to practice at any time. Nobody knows you're doing it, right? It's
Yeah.
just all this internal practice. Yeah.
Yes. And lastly, I'd like to ask you, you've done a lot of talks. I'd love to understand more about your book and what all of it entails.
Yeah. Do you mean the
Yeah,
psychoneuroplasticity book?
yeah.
Yeah. So psychoneuroplasticity protocols for addiction so when I worked in treatment, I was the director of the neuroscience department, and a lot of it is the research that we took from the treatment center and put it into a qualitative state. So it actually is a textbook more,
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say. It actually got used by a university in Miami. And so it is a textbook. And so if you're looking for a fun read, that might not be the one for you. It's more of a scientific read. However, it's about the intersection of neuroscience and addiction healing, and the way that our brain is during addiction, and ways we can transform the brain and be able to heal and go into recovery. So if anybody out there is interested in learning about addiction from a neuroscience standpoint, it's an excellent read.
Yeah. Wow. It's fascinating because I went through my own host of addictions growing up for many years, and mindfulness is something that very much helped me get off my addictions and helped me heal in many, many ways. So it would be fascinating to understand the science behind it and how the mind operates when you're in that state of addiction, and how the breath and going into that deeper state of awareness can help you I guess, alleviate what you're going through or shift into a state where you don't want to consume what you're doing anymore. So it is definitely very fascinating. uh,
Yeah, yeah, thanks.
yeah. Uh, sorry, were you going to speak?
No, I was just gonna say thank you so much.
Yeah,
Sorry.
all good. I would love to understand you. I've seen on your website that you've done a lot of talks. What are mainly the subject of these talks?
Usually, the talks that people have me come talk about is about spirituality and science. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are interested in that intersection between spirituality and science, and so I have a PowerPoint and things where I go into it and actually teach people how to do different practices, and so it's fascinating. I also have some research, some QEEGs that I show evidence of before and after doing before the spiritual practices and after, and how your brain looks. So I used to work at a neuroplasticity center, and so I
Yeah.
have a lot of those brains that I can show people, actually hardcore evidence of how the brain changes through spiritual practice.
Yes. I have seen a lot of that data in Dr. Joe Dispenza's books from his seminars. He shows also the brain scans and how
Yes.
people are healing themselves in real time, which is just so powerful. That
Yeah.
with so many of us, we can't even conceive of how powerful our mind is, and that there's obviously something happening at a deeper soul level when we're going into these states. Like this practice was almost put you as a means to be able to heal yourself, to attract things, like almost the mind is like a magical tool.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Can you repeat that last part? We just cut off a little bit.
Oh yeah, sorry, I was saying that the the mindfulness and practices of meditation will almost put you as a gift from God to be able to tap into our mind and use it like we're our own magician in a way, where we're granting spells by attracting what we want, healing what we want.
Oh yeah.
So until we realize that we are the magician of our life, then we're going to walk through life blaming the world around us, blaming the people, blaming ourselves. But rather than blaming, let's try to direct our focus on internally using the mechanisms that we're gifted to be able to shift who we are and what our life is all about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I believe that we have all the resources we need to create the life that we want. No matter what you're doing or who you are or anything, your genetics, we have the tools. It's more about believing in the tools and using those tools to transform. And that's why I do
Yeah.
like working with a professional, because usually a professional, a healer, a coach, they can guide you on how to use those tools.
Yes, definitely. Uh, I've definitely had my own experiences. I'd love to know if your opinions on practices like past life regression, what you believe in your insight is about death and what happens to us, and how I believe death is a part of the living experience. And I'd like to understand about what you believe about life and death and that whole concept.
Yeah, I believe that when we pass away, we've completed our mission. It's almost like a party, like, yay, Laura did it, I know a
Yeah.
lot of times it brings a lot of grief into our loved one's life, so it doesn't feel like a celebration because physically no longer with us. However, I believe that when you're taken out of your physical body and you're that spirit or that soul, that means that you can connect to that person on the other side anytime you want to. I had my beloved puppy died. He was 14, and he was really heartbreaking because I had him for 13 years. So it's just like having a child, and I was so devastated. And then I realized I can connect with, his name's Rocky. I can connect to Rocky anytime when we meet in this space when I meditate. And he's there and it's real and it's true. I feel his presence. And I think we think of death as this definite ending, but it's actually a liberation.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So true. And a lot of the Buddhist teachings talk about that. They have the stages called the bardos, which is the stages between life and death. And a lot of us have this, innate fear towards death because our human self fears the unknown in a way. We never like unknown. We only like certainty as humans. How could humans, I guess, grapple with this idea that the impermanence of life is so true and it's only a piece of the puzzle of what we will experience because we are souls? But how can people alleviate that fear of one day this physical experience will come to an end?
Yeah, and I think that's when us working on the ego is really important, because it's the ego that fears the death, right?
Yes.
And a lot of people, when they have psychedelic experiences like with combo or with ayahuasca, they experience this no ego momentarily. And so I do believe that us being comfortable with death also has to do with how much regret do we have in our life? In other words, did you do what you felt like you needed to do when you were on earth? And I think fear of death really is just, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Because,
Yeah.
talking to people who are certain that they're living their purpose, I don't experience them as fearful as death as somebody who is not living out their purpose or not doing what they feel their soul needs to be doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, the ego death they talk about. And
Yeah.
I think the ego is a vital part of our existence, and it's necessary for us in many ways to be driven, to have aspirations. So it does keep us on path or intact in a way, but we have to learn to grapple with it when you have control over it and it doesn't control you. And that comes down to that, self empowerment and that awareness that we are not, just the ego. We have to rise above the ego in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk to us about spirit guides and angels and your belief around that. Do you actively tap into that? Do you believe in that they send you synchronicities? How can we tap into our guides, and do we all have our own set of guides?
Yes, I believe we all have guides, and depending on your belief system, I really believe you have angels as well, and it just depends on how you want to interpret them. However, they're there. I believe they're there and they're ready to help you, but you have to ask and you have to acknowledge that they're there. And I think a lot of people that don't necessarily know about this line of work, I think a lot of times they dream them in their dream state. And they said, I don't know who that, there was somebody in my dream and I didn't know who they were. A lot of times it's a guide, it's a spirit guide or an angel. And so, yes, I do believe that you have access to a team in the spirit world that is here to help you. And if you don't believe me, just start asking for help in certain ways. I ask my angels for help, like angels requesting the most benevolent outcome, that today I will be impactful in my sessions and that you'll give me insight that I need to help people. And I receive that insight, and it's a beautiful connection that you have once you phosphor it and you really allow yourself to connect with your spirit guides. But
Yeah.
the clients that I work with, once they connect to their spirit guides, they're so blown away because they're like, oh my gosh, this is real. I'm like, yeah, I
Yeah.
know it is real. Just
Yeah.
because we can't see with our physical eye doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yes. And it's a liberating feeling in a way, knowing that we are not alone. It's not necessarily about our outside relationships. We all have higher beings that are guiding us on this journey. All we have to do is ask. So
Yeah.
ask and
Oh
you shall
yeah.
receive.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I guess that is all I have right now, and I really thank you
Yeah.
so much for this conversation. It has been an honor
Thank
to
you,
learn, and
Jess.
it's only
Yes.
really there's so much more I could speak about. Hopefully, in the future, we could do a part two. I've got so many other questions. If anything, I have an infinite amount of questions because we are infinite. If
Yes.
anyone that watching can find you anywhere, please share what you're up to, where they can find you, anything you have to share.
Yeah, my Instagram is probably the most social media that I do. So you can find me on Instagram at the Neuro Shamanic Healer. You can also visit my website at the Neuro Shamanic Healer. And you can find me on Facebook at Laura Martinez, although there's a lot of Laura Martinez's. So I'm the one that's meditating in the picture. But please find me on there. Drop me a line if you're hearing this and you felt inspired or you have a question. I'd love to answer anything that you have.
It's beautiful, Laura. Thank you. It's been such a pleasure to share your wisdom. Hopefully you've taught somebody out there and helped them. You've definitely helped me. And I hope that we could speak again. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jess. And I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. I loved being on your podcast today.